Hey, this is Corey from Wolfpack Woodcraft, and this week's book is Winter Backpacking, your guide to safe and warm winter camping and day trips. Now, this book is very detailed. It goes into very specific detail, and even though it is about winter backpacking, the information in here pretty much goes for everything. If you're of a prepper mindset, you're going to want the gear inside this book that they talk about. If you're winter camping, you're going to want the gear inside here and the knowledge in here as well. If you're anything that that revolves around extreme cold weather, outdoor activities, this is a really good book because it goes into so much detail about almost everything there is to go into detail about. And one of my favorite chapters is about kids and dogs. And so if you're going to bring your kids or your dog camping with you or backpacking in the winter, it tells you how to accommodate for them as well. And so this is a really good book, and it goes over like everything. The other thing is it's got really good photography in it. So there's pictures, like photographs that you can look at, and it shows exactly what they're talking about, why it's important. It's just a super good book. And the thing is what a lot of people don't understand is when it comes to winter anything, the dangers and the energy needed to accomplish anything are 10 times harder in the winter. And this book covers all of that stuff, because even something as simple as walking 100 yards in the winter is extremely different, because so like if you're on a football field, okay, 100 yards is the length of a football field. If you walk from one side to the other, yeah, you just walked 100 yards, like you know what that is, you know what that feels like, you understand. When you're doing that on super deep snow, it's completely different. When you're doing it on ice, it's completely different. It's much more complicated. And this book goes over that. It goes over the difference between crampons and snowshoes. It goes over the difference between different fuel systems. So if you don't know, crampons are spikes that go on the bottom of your boots so that you can get traction on the ice. Because when the ice melts, even if it just melts a little, it self-levels. It's essentially water. And so it fills in all the cracks, all the bumps, all the dips. It just becomes this sheet of glass. And it's extremely difficult to walk on because you're just slipping and sliding more than you are actually moving. And so the crampons grip into that ice and let you walk across the ice without having to slip and fall and potentially hurt yourself. And then snowshoes prevent you from post-holing. And so you can walk across the snow so what post-holing is when you walk on snow that's 4, 5, 6, 10 feet deep. Your leg, because all of your personal weight is on your single foot, you fall into the snow. Okay, and sometimes you can post-hole knee deep, sometimes you can post-hole crotch deep, which is very scary. But what ends up happening is you step, and each step you take, you have to lift your foot out of the snow, and then you're going to post-hole again, and then you got lifted out of the snow, post-hole again, and it's extremely exhausting. And if you post-hole crotch deep, it's extremely dangerous, because what a lot of people do that aren't familiar with it is they post-hole as deep as they can go, and then they go to lift themselves up. Well, if the snow isn't hard and compact, when they go to push themselves out of that hole, they don't push themselves. Their arms just fall into the snow along with their leg, right? And so a lot of people, when that happens, they panic and they just start trying to get leverage to pull themselves out. And what they do is every single time they push, they're packing the snow down around their leg, getting their leg more and more stuck into the snow. And so it's not a big deal, right? If you post-hole and you're stuck, your arms sink, you just start digging, right? You just got to dig out that leg, and it's not a big deal. But if you're not used to it, if it's not something on the top of your mind and you start panicking, once you start panicking, your mind doesn't work the way it's supposed to work, and you just start doing whatever it is you feel you need to do instead of what you actually need to do. And a lot of times people just make the situation way worse instead of progressing and making it better. And so again, you just got to dig yourself out and get that leg out and then try even more. The other thing is a lot of people think that when you're wearing snowshoes, because a snowshoe is like a big tennis racket you put on your feet, and what it does is it distributes your weight across a larger area. And so a lot of people think that you walk on top of the snow instead of post-holing into it. And that is true to a point. You still do sink. Even though it's not a lot, you still do sink. And then you have the weight of the snowshoe itself. So every step is still much more difficult than you would just walking like a normal person, like you would at the store or on a football field or in the summer. And so all these things are much more difficult. They take a lot more planning, a lot more understanding. And so it is an important book to have. If you are someone that experiences winters with deep snow, with extreme cold weather, I highly recommend this book. If that's something that concerns you, is being stuck in the cold, this is a great book for that as well. I really like this book. To be completely transparent, when I first started reading it, it took me a long time to get into it because the very first thing they talk about is clothes. And it is such a detailed book that they just keep talking about it and talking about it. I'm like, all right, already. And the reason I felt that way is because I live in Minnesota. And in Minnesota, we have negative 40-degree temperatures. And ever since I was a little kid, I learned about clothing, right? My parents harped on me about wearing the right clothes. When I went to school, we learned about the right clothes in school. At the start of every day, we would have to change out of our boots and snow pants and all of our winter gear into our school shoes. And then we would start class, and then at the end of the day we would stop early so that we could go put our snow pants and jackets and hats and gloves and boots on so that we could go home. And it's just so ingrained into me. Even right now, having a son of my own, I'm the one now going, you're not leaving this house until you put on hat and gloves, and where are your winter boots? Now it's my job to enforce the winter clothing. And so it's just something that's just ingrained in me. It's been a part of my life my entire life. And so it took me a while to get through the first clothing chapter, but the clothing chapter is super important. I would not skip it. If you are not from a place with extreme cold temperatures, your clothing is your first line of shelter. Your clothing is the only thing you have when you step outside. Okay, and when you are dealing with these extreme colds, any skin that's out in the elements are going to get frostbite in an extremely short amount of time. So you want to make sure you have your hat, your gloves, your boots, your snow pants. It's very, very important. It's so important that I've been lectured on it my entire life. And if it's not something that you've been lectured on your whole entire life, you want to learn about it. And so it did take me a while because I'm like, yes, this is all common knowledge. And there was parts in here where I'm like, yes, I get it. Like a canister stove won't work in the extreme cold. Everybody knows that. But not everybody knows that. People that are living in the desert, people that are living in parts of the world like California that don't get extreme cold weather, they don't know that. They can go and use a canister stove year round with zero issues. And so again, it's a lot of information. It's very detailed. It goes over everything. There's even a chapter about kids and dogs. And so if you want to bring your kids out or your dogs, or if you want to get your kids or dogs prepared for extreme cold or winter environment, it talks about the importance of sunglasses. That's another thing people don't understand is when it comes to winter, sunglasses are more important in the winter than they are in the summer. And they're still important in the summer. But the thing is in the summer months, you can go and you can find a shaded area and you can rest your eyes, you can rest. There's lots of shade, right? In the winter, there's hardly any shade because the sun is reflecting off that snow and everything, it's just blinding white light everywhere. Because the sun reflects that snow and that snow gives off this blinding white light, like this hat, you can even see if I put my head down a little bit, there's now a shadow covering my eyes so I can get out of the sun with this brim. In the winter, the sun is shining from above and then the snow is shining from underneath, and this hat is worthless at keeping the sun out of my eyes. It is completely worthless. You have to have sunglasses. You have to have goggles, especially when it's really windy. When that wind picks up and that snow's blowing in your face, having goggles is way better than sunglasses. But again, they need to protect your eyes from the light, the blinding white light as well. And it goes over all that. This is an important book. It does have a lot of important information, and I feel like when I first purchased it, I was like, all right, it's about winter backpacking. But once I read it and once I understood what the detail they were going into and why they were going into so much detail, I was like, this is a book that I think a lot of people need, and I highly recommend it. And if you have any concerns about being in the winter, if you live in a state that has a harsh winter, if you plan on going somewhere with a harsh winter, I recommend you picking up this book. So make sure to like and share this video, and I can't wait to see you on my next one.